members of the whole group that ran the observatory wanted the infrared because guess what they were seeing? They were seeing things that, well, it can't be satellites because a satellite just can't come to a dead stop and then go in the opposite direction. So there's something out there. And if people, cloud their mind and say that there's no existence of UFOs, they are just like people that thought the world is flat and you're going to sail off the end of the earth and, drop off.
Yeah, it all depends on your background and your belief system. I was very fortunate in the fact that I was introduced to metaphysics as a 17-year-old as I was searching for truth after my cop dad died. Now, it's funny you mentioned those night vision goggles because I went on a star search to Laguna Mountains with a large group headed by the guy who had his paranormal show, and I can't remember his name, but we all got a chance to use those 3D binoculars. And I got to tell you, Gary, I saw a chevron-shaped object way up in the sky, and I was too embarrassed to actually tell everybody. And they actually had a laser that would point on it, and I was trying to tell myself, are you really seeing this? Are your eyes fuzzy? But it looked like a chevron shape. And that's reminiscent of what happened in 1997 in Phoenix, that gigantic, silent chevron shape that cruised over the whole neighborhood. That's a sign that aliens want us to know that they not only exist, but they are observing us. And once again, I think with all these crop circles that are obviously not of human origin, they are speaking directly to the human population. Just right after we sent the Arecibo, that's not the right name for it, Arecibo telescope, we sent a message in 74. And sure enough, 27 years later, the aliens responded, not with a radio signal that would have been sent to SETI, who would not have told us about it because that's not their mandate. They have to report to the government, and the government's not going to tell us anything. So that's sort of a waste of time there. But instead, the aliens wanted mankind to see the results. And sure enough, they created the 2001 Gibraltar photograms, which were right next to the Gibraltar telescope. And it was made overnight in the dark of night and included an alien head and a message.
Oh, hopefully you're still there. I think we
totally amazing.
Okay, you're dropping out. It's hopefully.
I'm sorry. So, yes, talking about how my idea that aliens have created these crop circles in a direct attempt to alert mankind, not only to their presence, but that we need to start believing because thoughts have substance. That's in metaphysics. And whatever you focus on, that's your destiny. Now, if we can, as a civilization, actually practice right thinking and start thinking positive about wanting to create alien contact, which is going to result in interplanetary contact and trade, which Betty Hill proved exist when she described her star map as she was being abducted in 1961. And they pointed out that these solid lines to other stars are trading routes. That's what mankind is in store for. But just like Marina Popovich, the famous test pilot from Russia, who was a friend of mine, we met twice. She actually held up my UFO photo on Channel 10. She says, and she's had a lot of experience, that we need to upgrade our moral backbone if we're going to be allowed to handle this knowledge, because it's very powerful and you have to have the right mindset. I don't think there's going to be a lot of people who believe that somebody should be killed because that's not part of the Ten Commandments. And I believe every civilization, and there are many, have been given their own Ten Commandments because that's why the Spirit created the flesh, for us to have a chance to prove our worthiness of joining the Godhead. And because we live in a physical reality that we're not taught about the psychic reality, which is going to be the next phase of human evolution.
Well, you're so right. But one thing I will say about UFOs and aliens and all this stuff, I think we're, being visited by very, very many different, species of aliens, or, and not just one. And my feeling is because of the cattle problems, and in Brazil, there's been even problems where, abductions of humans, and then they have had those same things happening to those humans when they find the body is the same thing that we've been finding with the cattle here, where their sex glands were removed, their tongues removed, their hearts removed, their eyes are removed.
Well, they haven't been doing that to humans, but yeah, they've been doing it to the cows.
No, they actually, in Brazil, a friend of mine works for a government agency and has supplied me some information. In Brazil, that has even been happening in Brazil. Now, I don't know if it's happening in our country. If it is, they probably wouldn't tell us, because I think that would freak people out more than the cattle.
That's funny, Mr. Anderson, because it's absolutely true that there probably was a real Star Wars in the past, according to some of these woodcuts that show a battle in outer space. And that's because the good aliens had to let the less concerned aliens know that there is a process of learning going on planet Earth, and you guys are not going to interfere with the mandate that these good aliens, the emissaries, are fulfilling for our Creator. Now, I'm hoping that we need to not only understand that they exist and that they are our benefactors, because we've only deciphered 5% of our genetic code. We have no idea what the other 95% of our DNA is all about. And I'm thinking that these abductions, where some of these women have actually been reinduced to their in-between child, half alien, half human, that there may be untold number of these in-betweens who have been taught all the psychic knowledge that they are going to mentor to those humans, and hopefully there'll be billions, that will survive the shift of the axis. And what I believe is going to be a rapture that can literally happen at any time, because the Earth is so in need of flipping over and rebooting that is causing great catastrophes all around the globe. So the aliens want us to pick up the pace, to understand where they're coming from, and that they have a great love for mankind. And, it's funny that I have sort of been picked to do this, and I see it because I'm a humanist like my father. My cop dad was a great humanist who I still admire, and he only had 38 years of life, and I still can't live up to what he did, what he accomplished in his life. But he had a great love for humanity, and I've known since 1990 that this event is coming, Gary, and we're not prepared for it mentally. I'm hoping that our efforts by people like you and myself are going to help get the word out that aliens are a good thing. And as a matter of fact, the military has learned that they are not going to be shooting at aliens and UFOs anymore, because the same ordnance, the same ammo that they shoot at them, apparently is returned with deadly accuracy.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't want to mess with these guys. And let me tell you, when I made the front page of the Beach and Bay Press down in La Jolla, because I found another rock face down there, and I actually saw as well my ABC event where Marina held up my UFO photo on Channel 10. They mentioned the fact that I was going to hopefully bring a lot of tourism to San Diego because of these rock faces, as well as talk about these alien contacts. Because in San Diego, after I made that front page, they sent me some of the phone calls, and one guy was a retired businessman who told me in the early 50s that he had a contact over lunch tell him that back in the 40s, when he worked at Edwards Air Force Base as a security guard, at 2 in the morning, alarms were blaring, and 10 MPs came running out in front of this hangar to discover a UFO hovering over in front of the hangar. Well, the sergeant, after a moment, ordered the MPs to fire upon the UFO, and this guy reported that the UFO absorbed the bullets, and then something happened. A lever opened up, and a green beam shot out and atomized the sergeant right in front of everybody. Just poof, he's gone. So it was a lesson to the other 10 MPs. Don't mess with us. And we have weapons that far outnumber yours, and the technology that they experience. I don't think aliens are going to let us have a space force in the skies, because that's not their plan. It's all spiritual, and we're going in the wrong direction. What do you think, Gary?
Well, you know what I find really, and I have brought this up a couple of times, and I even did a special show on this. What I find so, strange, back, a few years ago off of the aircraft carrier, those 2 pilots, ran into a UFO. They tried to give chase.
That was 2004, brother, right off San Diego. Hello.
Yep, and you know what? How many years did it take? But all of a sudden, it started circulating on the news. It started circulating on YouTube and everywhere. I don't know how it managed to get out, but it got out. But then, then about a month after that, or 2 months after that, the Secretary of our Air Force, for the graduating cadets, got up there and said to the cadets, the next war is not going to be a ground war. The next war is going to be in outer space. I heard that, and I kind of go, well, that's kind of strange. I mean, you could take that so many different ways. But then Trump, 2 months later, jokingly said, well, maybe I should create a space force. Then, 2 months later, him and the vice president direct the Pentagon to start creating a space force, which I find very strange anyway, because we have the Air Force. Why would you need to create another force for space? For protection. I just find the whole thing kind of really strange.
Well, it's interesting. I was watching Ancient Aliens, and our Russian pilots over there, we're counting on them to hitch a ride to our astronauts to the International Space Station. And the Russians have played such an important role in getting mankind into space. I mean, they got Yuri Gagarin up there, and they got Sputnik up there. And it's really interesting, in 1984, Russian cosmonauts had a remarkable experience up in the sky. They saw this large orange cloud separate into 7 angelic beings. Now, this is not something they're going to say just offhand because they appear to be kooks. But it was amazing because the next set of cosmonauts that went up there to the mirror, they saw the same thing. So I'm thinking, this is a global event, Gary. It was a baby boomer from San Diego who stumbled upon this code first, but I believe it's for all of mankind. And when you look at some of my other discoveries, including the fact that I'm the first person, I believe, to understand and recognize that the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, Mexico, is in fact a purposely designed giant human head. And I have believed that if you look at my research, that I discovered that it's the Mayan god El who created the Nazca lines. Because here he is on this vase with a giant hummingbird on his shoulder, and guess what? There's giant hummingbirds at Nazca. And the same projecting triangles that I've collected in a handful of UFO photos are all over the Nazca plain, called the Concord and the Great Triangle. They're triangles with a projection, just like all these UFOs. And it was so depressing for me many years ago watching Arthur C. Clarke's World of Mysterious Powers, and Josh Gates did the same thing. They lined up these kids with sticks and a string and claimed that's how the Nazca lines were made. It couldn't have been moved by aliens, and they walked away. And I'm going, no, I'm not buying that. I mean, look at Ancient Aliens. They have shown that the largest projecting trapezoid out there